Hello, First Nations campers, and welcome to episode 2 in our series about botany. Hopefully by now your bean plants have at least sprouted a few leaves and are reaching up towards the sun to soak up some rays. I myself am surrounded by a whole bunch of different plants right now. I'm in the beautiful prairies all around Mequon Nature Preserve. For our second episode, we're going to be talking about, what botany is. Botany is basically the study of plants. We're trying to find out why plants do what they do and how it's important to us and all the animals around us, and namely how we benefit from it, because the plants do a lot of good things for us. Feel free to pause the video now and just kind of take a seat back and think, what are some good things that plants do for me? How do plants help me in my everyday life? There are more. It's definitely more than one. Go ahead and try to think of some things. All right, so probably the biggest one that we hear about a lot is air, oxygen. If you like to breathe, I know I do. Plants provide us oxygen that we breathe, and that's through a process that's known as photosynthesis. I'll be going over what photosynthesis actually is later in the video. After giving us air, or I should say providing us oxygen, probably the other biggest one is food, right? When we think about food and plants, probably fruits and vegetables, but plants actually give us all the energy. Food is what gives me the energy to move around and walk around and talk right now. I need all that energy, and I get it from plants. Even if you eat meat, you're still ultimately getting that energy from plants. The ultimate source of all the energy that we have, look at the dragonfly just flew by. They are using the same energy that I am. Whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal, we are all getting our energy from the sun. And it's only plants that are able to actually give us that energy. And that goes right back to photosynthesis. It's actually a 1-2 punch. Not only does it give us the oxygen that we need to breathe, but photosynthesis is what allows the energy from the sun to travel up the food chain and come from plants to any type of animal, or from plants to us. Whether we're eating meat or a plant, it is always because of the plants that energy is coming to us. Lastly, besides the oxygen and all the food that plants provide us, they also provide habitat for both humans and animals. Think about if your home has any type of wood in it, whether it's your furniture, the actual foundation of your house. Trees are a woody plant, and we get our wood from plants. If I'm an animal, I might actually just live in a tree. One tree can be home to many, many different animals of various different sizes. They can all share it together. On top of that, think about if I'm a bug right now, how small I would be. Something like this prairie plant would basically be a tree for me. And they provide lots of food, they provide shelter, as well as a place for their young. So a lot of insects actually, their entire lives revolve around a certain type of plant. They're that important to them. And up the food chain, we go to larger animals like deer, all those types of large mammals. There are only certain plants that they eat, and they'll use them to rest in. So plants provide habitat for both people and animals. They're very, very important to pretty much all realms of our lives. Some of you may be familiar with the term photosynthesis, and you might know the process behind it. For those of you that don't, that's all right, because we're going to go in depth now with a little demonstration to explain what a miraculous process it is and how important it is to us. Photosynthesis is what plants do to feed themselves. But how exactly do they do it? First, they need the right ingredients. Think of it like baking a cake. You might need milk, flour, eggs, and sugar, and other ingredients or parts to complete the recipe. Photosynthesis is the same way. For a plant to make its food, it needs the right ingredients and components. The first one is water. Plants absorb water from the roots.
You missed! I tossed it.
Next, plants need a chemical known as carbon dioxide, or CO2 for short. CO2 is abundant in the air and comes from many different sources. When animals breathe, it's called respiration. That's when oxygen, or O2, in the air is breathed in, and CO2 is released back out when we exhale. Respiration is a natural source of CO2. Decomposition, or the breaking down of dead plants and animals, also releases CO2. A big human source of CO2 is from the burning of fossil fuels like gas or coal. Now that our plant has some water, let's give it some CO2 too. With the water and CO2 together, the last step is to put them in the presence of the sun's energy. Once this happens, a chemical reaction occurs, turning our CO2 and H2O into a sugar called glucose. As a byproduct, oxygen is also created. Glucose is a food for the plant. This is how plants feed themselves. Can humans do this? No, we cannot photosynthesize. Humans and nearly all other animals are consumers. We must eat to get our energy. When an herbivore eats a plant, the energy that was stored in the plant is then transferred onto that animal. If a carnivore then eats that herbivore, it then takes its energy for itself. This is how energy flows up the food chain, but ultimately all the energy can be traced back down to plants, who got their energy from the sun. The sun is the source of energy for all living things, but only plants have the power to access it. Humans do, however, harvest energy from the sun another way. Solar panels collect sunlight's energy to be used for powering appliances. This form of energy is both clean and renewable. Let's go back to your bean plant now. In your binder for week 3 is an activity sheet. As junior botanists, your task is to draw your bean plant and label its parts. Plants have several important and interesting body features, such as the stem, which supports the leaves as well as transporting water and nutrients, or the roots, which holds the plant to the ground and collects water. The flowers attract pollinators, who in turn help plants make their seeds. Don't forget to draw and label the leaves. This is where photosynthesis takes place. Have fun with your activity, and in a few weeks' time, your beans will be ready to be harvested. Don't forget to thank the plant for all the hard work it did, for because of it, we have the energy we need.